Old are you?
11.
11.
How old are you?
11.
All right. What's your thoughts on getting whoopings? Should they happen or?
Personally, I think they should not happen
Okay.
for my
All right,
well-being.
We'll come back to why.
Well, I think they shouldn't.
They should not. No. Okay. What you think?
I think they should.
All right. All right. Now, why? Why should they happen?
I think they should happen because it's a thing called talking. And you should get disciplined, but you don't have to resort to being abusive, which is very abusive.
Whoopings are abusive. Okay.
Yep, especially when your mama just hitting you over hard too. She doing it on purpose.
Okay.
Violence is not the answer.
That's why it shouldn't happen. Okay. And why you think it should happen?
It's because discipline. Say, it's a certain amount of discipline. So like, say they do something like bad, but it's not really bad, then you don't have to. But say they do something like real bad, then that's when you resort to whooping them. So say the first time you just let them go off, but you take away their game and stuff like that. That don't happen, and you do the same thing again and again, but that still doesn't work. Then they resort to whooping you.
Okay, I got a question. Does whooping stop a person from doing whatever that thing was?
No. Personally,
No.
I mean, not really, but at the same time, kinda. Some certain kids.
All right. Well, hold on. All right. My other question is, does it make more sense to hit an adult or a child? And the reason I'm asking that is, who do you think has the more developed brain that can understand why they are being hit? Which one? The child has a more developed brain that can understand why they're being hit better? Or does an adult have a more developed brain that can understand why they are being hit better? Which one?
the child, because they know what they was doing.
So the child has a more developed brain than the adult.
Well, when it comes to the parent hitting the child, yes, because they know what they did.
That's not what I'm asking. I'm
Okay, what
asking who has the more developed brain.
In general?
Yeah.
In general.
Or not in general. Which one
I'm
has
asking, is it in general or not in general? Because
women, do you know of adults that have?
I know of adults that have developed brain. I'm talking about like when it comes down to what they're like.
No, so
Okay.
we got a 10-year-old and a 30 or 40 or 50 or 60, and we keep going. Which ones have the more developed brain? The older you get or the younger you get?
The older you get.
So which one has the more
Well, you
developed
said
brain?
when it comes to hitting them though.
No, I didn't. I did. That's not. Listen to the question again. I said, who has the more developed brain? Because if you hit the one with the less developed brain, will they be able to understand why they are being hit versus the person with the developed brain who gets hit? Which one can understand why they're being hit better? The one with the underdeveloped brain or the younger person or the older person?
But you said
That's exactly what I said.
No, because you said
No,
which one has
only
the more developed brain?
Right, and which one does? Which one does?
The parent. But
Thank
you said with the
and I
child.
said, so no, but no. The question is, which one would understand why they are being hit better?
but
That's the question.
Let me get that
all right.
You-
I'm just
you hear
saying
the
I'm just saying
question, right?
because you said develop all the way.
Exactly. It's what's throwing you off is that it's our tradition to hit who?
The child,
Right, but which one has the more developed brain? Huh? Which one?
the parent,
So which one would understand why they're being hit better?
the parent.
Exactly. Don't that make logical sense, or that's illogical?
Oh no, cause
You fighting against tradition in your head. Which one sounds logical to you?
The parent,
The parent, right? Because they have a more developed brain, or I'm making this up?
they have a more developed brain.
What do you think? You think adults have more
I guess
developed
the
brain?
I guess the
Y'all guessing. So let me get this straight again.
Cause
So
I
as
don't
soon
know,
as
you
a
just
person is
confused me with
born,
that question.
you wait, hold on.
That
Let me.
whole question just confused me.
You said it's confusing. So hold on. Let me get this straight. You're telling me when a child is born, their brain is more developed than an adult.
No,
So where's the confusion? The only confusion is that you think kids should be hit, and I'm challenging that. Correct?
I mean, I don't know because it's like you ask us one thing and then you ask us another thing, which that throw me off. I don't know. Like,
Okay.
you asking the two
Okay. Wait a
things.
minute. Again. Which one has the more developed brain?
The adult.
Okay. So my question is, which one would understand more things? Let's say we're not talking about hitting. We're talking about life. which one would understand more about life, the younger person or the older person?
The older person.
So then the only thing tripping you up is that it's tradition that we hit kids, correct?
I mean,
Because if we're talking about who understands more, my question,
It's
hold on,
really-
my only question was who would understand why they're being hit better? That's the only question.
Oh, okay. The adult. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
And why am I making that conclusion? Because they have a more.
Developed brain.
Thank you. Does it make sense now to you?
Yes.
Does it make sense to you yet?
Yeah.
Okay. But what? Go ahead. What's your
But
comment?
I'm
What's your
saying
comment?
like, when you said it's a tradition to hate kids, and
Correct.
not all, because
Wait a
not
minute. What's
all.
a tradition? Hold on.
Because you
Does
said-
everybody in America celebrate Christmas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, listen to the question again. Y'all said yes. Does everyone in America celebrate Christmas?
No.
Thank
no,
you.
no.
But is that an American tradition?
Yes.
Yes.
It's
but
an American
everybody
tradition,
don't
but it's
thank
not
you. But that
everybody
doesn't mean
celebrate it.
everybody celebrates. Right? Correct?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Miss Smith just trying to get y'all to think. That's it. All right, did you have another comment about the hitting thing? Now, what clicked in your mind when you was like, oh, I get what he's saying now?
Like
What
the parent
clicked?
understands why they're hitting the child.
Right, but will the child always understand?
No.
No. Could the child misinterpret why they're being hit?
Yes.
What else might the child learn if they're being hit? What's something else they may learn other than my parent was mad at me? What else might they learn? Dang, hold on.
We talked about the
What was it?
traditions. I don't know.
Oh, dang, what was the last thing? I had a point.
Traditions. We was talking about Christmas. Wait, can't you?
Go ahead.
No, not for this. I was saying.
Based
Okay,
off
so the question
personally-
is, what else would a child learn other than they made their parent mad or they did something wrong? What else can you learn from being hit?
Well, I'm gonna say this from my personal view of
Okay.
it, and then I'm gonna say it based off general.
Okay.
So personally, when my mama hit me, do her thing, I just be like, you know what? I'm just shut up. I'm just be distant. That's me personally. I'm
So
just
then
start
what did
being
you learn
distant.
then? What did you learn to do then?
Be distant from my mama.
Is that good for your relationship?
It's not. That's based on me personally.
But what do you think- wait a minute.
In general,
Let me ask another
people
question
think
before
that
you go to
people
that.
think that I'm just not gonna do it again. That's
what the adult
generally
thinks.
right. Generally speaking too, but based off the kids for me was like, okay, my mom whooped me, I could do this again, and she just gonna keep whooping me.
True. Let me ask you another question now. Let's say it wasn't your mama hit you, and it was somebody else. Is that a person you want to get closer to, or would you create distance from that person?
Create distance because it's not my mama.
But
I'm
look
glad
what
my
you
mama
said.
hit me.
But look what you said about what happens when your mom hits you. You create that distance.
Well,
emotionally, because
okay,
you upset her
but-
or what?
but what I mean, like personally, I mean like I'm gonna distance myself from her for a
That's
little
what
while,
I'm-
and then then it's
Wait a
like
minute, so
I
you're
can't
saying
because
that
it's my
feeling
mama.
totally goes away?
Yeah.
It totally goes away. That feeling. You just forget about it.
Wait,
You telling me about it now, so clearly you ain't forgot about
so
it.
it's like,
Yeah, be
like,
honest.
Yeah, it's like okay, I'm like I'm back, but like I'm not feeling like I'm not
Exactly.
really
See?
that close. Like
No, closer
that's
than you
how-
would be if you didn't get hit, right? Correct? Because
'cause,
I
like,
can
me and my-
relate.
Me and my mom, we had a close relationship, but it was like then when she started saying all the stuff to me and making me seem like I'm the problem. So it was like,
That didn't make you feel good, right?
no, it didn't.
Okay.
Cause
All
I
right.
have
Oh,
no
go ahead.
siblings, and then it'd be like she make me seem like I'm the issue and I'm the problem. It's not really me; it's them too.
Okay. What about you? What do you think? What's something else somebody might learn from being hit? She learned that hey, you get distance, create distance when this happens. What else might a child learn? What about does the child you listening to? Does the child learn what an adult can do when they're angry? What does a child learn that an adult can do when they're angry? Who do they take their anger out on?
The kid.
Oh, you don't think you learned that?
Especially
Why do you think the parents end up doing that? Do you think they probably had that done to them?
Yes. I actually never get whooped with my mom.
No, I'm
Just
not questioning you once, but you understand.
So mom
Yeah.
used to whip me when I was like 3.
Wow.
She used to pop me, and it wasn't even that.
And what's
Like
a
when I
pop?
was younger, she used to just pop me on my hand, my mouth, anything.
Yeah.
But then when I got a little older, and she just started getting the belt out. So
All right.
I got this from the beginning all the way up to now. When my mom stopped with me all the way up to now, she just take my stuff, or
Okay.
she'll pop me up in my mouth. But
All
like,
right. Thank y'all. So, or any final thoughts on getting?
I didn't even get to answer the question.
That's okay. Did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah.
Go
So
ahead.
like the first part, the first half, she said, okay, I agree on that.
Uh-huh.
But when I I forget it. I'll forget emotionally. But like,
No.
yeah.
Oh, but you won't forget that the event happened.
Wait, no.
That's what you're saying.
My fault.
Is that's what you're
I'll
saying? You'll
for- my
still
fault.
remember that event.
Yeah, I'll still remember the event, but I'll forget that. I'll forget emotionally.
Okay. You got any final thoughts? What's your parents know about whooping?
Parents should know that whooping is not always a good solution because it can move you away from your child. And most parents who whoop, they don't want to be moved away from their child.
Right.
They want to know everything, especially my mama. She on me every day. She always talking about, do you have a boyfriend? Do you have this? Do you have that? She just, I don't know. She just like knowing what's going on with me personally.
Okay. You got any final thoughts? No? All right. Thank y'all so much.
got-
You got one? Go ahead.
So like, when you don't whoop your child, they do get soft because first they expect, cause some childs are too spoiled, cause they don't get. Some kids are too spoiled, so they don't get whoopings, and they expect everything they want, so they don't get disciplined. But then when they don't get that, they start to get sad and stuff like that. So then that's what comes discipline and stuff. That's where discipline.
Let me ask all of y'all a question. If we looked up the definition of discipline in the dictionary, do you think hitting someone will come up?
Yes.
So let me listen to the question again. You think if we look up the definition of discipline, a part of the definition will be hitting?
Well,
You say no, right? Okay. You understand the question now?
Okay. Well, I don't think the full definition would be discipline, but if we looked in Google, and
I'ma do it in a second.
They'll probably have like a little bit more of like,
Do you think will it involve hitting? Because we're going to look it up and then we're going to hit record again. Okay, she says no. What you say? Anything related to hitting? Maybe. Okay, what you think?
Maybe.
Will the definition of discipline have anything connected to hitting someone? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, we're about to look. Okay, we looked it up. This is the first thing that pops up. It says, the practice of training people to obey rules or a code of behavior using punishment to correct disobedience. A branch of knowledge typically one studied in higher education. So there we go. Those are the two definitions it gave us.
Okay, but punishment is getting
Now,
a
so
whooping.
well, that's
So they just brought it up
wait a
too,
minute.
But they
No,
ain't
but the
say
point,
hitting, though.
the
Okay.
point is, if we looked up punishment, do you think the definition of punishment will have hitting?
Maybe not.
The
maybe.
definition, no. Look, remember, definition tells you what something is or is not.
It doesn't exactly.
Because the point is, can you get discipline and punishment without hitting?
You can't dance.
Okay, so you cannot get hit in school, but do you get punished?
Yes.
So now you see my point. It's just our tradition that we hit kids.
They had the little paddle.
Okay, now you're right, because that happened to me. Correct. So when I was in 6th grade, I got my first paddling. I did in 6th grade. That was my worst year. So I can feel y'all.
I know. I
got
just
it.
know about it because I read.
How?
I know
Oh,
about
you
it because I read, and my teachers
do.
tell me like, oh well, this what happened to the black kids. This what happened to the white kids. Like they used to get separated. That's when
Yep,
the paddling
segregation.
started happening. The segregation. It started happening with the white kids. They used to get paddled.
Yeah,
The black
and the
kids
black
used to
kids
get
get
paddled.
paddled, yep.
But it was like black kids had it worse, and the white kids had it better. But they would still get the same like.
Same type of punishment.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, go ahead.
The thing is back then, what she said, they did get paddled, but instead of the teachers calling the principal would walk around the school, and the teachers would just send the kids out in the hallway, and then the principal would be right there.
I don't know. That
'Cause I
probably
seen
didn't
it
happen in most
somewhere.
kids because you would want it to be private.
I
Because
seen
when
it
it happened, well, because I experienced
No, it was when everybody was in the classroom and
And
the
it was,
teacher
the
would
teacher
call.
doing it. It wasn't the.
Oh yeah, there was a
sometimes-
time when teachers did. You're right. You're right.
And then the principal, if it was like, if they got sent to the principal office,
There we go.
then
There
they'll
we go.
get the paddle. But
Yeah.
the teachers would have it too, so they wouldn't have to do that.
Or rulers or something to smack your
Right.
hands.
I
Yeah.
just seen something. Where they just
All right.
said
Thank
about-
y'all so much.
Happy Thursday. Welcome back to On the Shoulders of Giants. You already know what time it is. We are in the Dean's office with Dean Rodney Smith, aka Heavy Hooks, and I'm Joseph Ward. And we are here to have a good discussion about beating Black children, the history of beating Black children, and should we beat Black children? What are the outcomes? What are the effects? Are they positive? Are they negative? Just all of the history and the ideas around punishment and discipline or corrective actions, and are beatings one of the best ways, or is it even a good way, or is it a horrible way to try to punish or correct the actions of your children? And of course, you see, we started off with a great clip, another great conversation that you had with your students. I love these conversations that you have with your students. And I love the fact that you challenge their thoughts and you get them to really, really, really not just say things, but think about the things that they're going to say, because after a while, before they open their mouth with you, they're going to really, really start thinking about what they're saying. So
that's true, especially the more I have conversations with the same students. A lot of times it's different students, so I get different reactions.
Right. So what prompted this particular conversation with your children about beatings and how they feel about beatings and should beatings happen?
I think I overheard somebody talking about getting beat, getting hit by their parents. So I always, whenever I hear something that I want to challenge, I call them over to my desk during a break and I'm like, hey, what was that you was talking about? Let me challenge some of that. Right. So that's how it started. Okay.
And so also in the video, you talked about 6th grade was being your first time in your life being getting a beating.
Well, no, that was the first time I got paddled at school.
Okay.
and actually the last time I got a whooping from my parents.
Gotcha. So before we dive into our personal history of how we would discipline, just overall, what are your thoughts about discipline or beating the children? Do you think beating children is a good thing? Is it something that has to happen? Are there better ways to discipline children?
I have 5 kids. I don't hit my kids.
Okay.
They're all on honor roll. What people fail to realize is that what they're saying is you have let a child go unsupervised for an extended period of time, and they've gotten used to doing what they want. So that's why when you finally say no or stop, they explode. And that's what we usually see at the stores, because usually when somebody's supervised consistently, you don't get these huge explosions that you see in the stores or in the mall or wherever you're at.
Right.
Usually, if you're not on top of your kids and making sure that you stop them from doing whatever that negative behavior is or whatever it is you don't want, then you're going to get these huge blow-ups. You're going to give them a chance to break into cars and break into houses because they're just so used to being adults. If you allow them to be an adult, they're going to do what adults do.
Right.
And adults go to jail, but these are kids we're talking about. So they need to be supervised and redirected, like you said. So that's what I do with my kids. So no, I don't think you should hit them because they have developing brains and they're learning something totally different when we hit them from what we think they should be learning. We think that this physical abuse is going to stop the activity, but they're picking up dynamics of power, gender, race, that they should not be picking up. Like you get to learn who, because if you grow up in a family where it's a boy and a girl, I bet money that boy gonna get beat more. I bet the daddy's probably gonna do most of the hitting, or it's gonna be a female if there is a girl doing it. And with these single parent homes, it's gonna be a lot of the moms doing it, but a lot of the negatives, physical stuff that women do are never associated with women. So again, it usually always falls back on the man being abusive and crazy. So I just don't think we should get into any of that.
Yeah. So I used to say this, and partially I still believe this, what I'm about to say, partially. I used to always say that people deserve 3 good ass whoopings throughout their lifetime. Not necessarily by their parents, but just and my thought behind that was because people have to understand the consequences. People have to understand consequences. Now, as I grew, as I got older, it changed from people need to understand, well, people need 3 good ass whoopings to people need to understand the consequences of their actions. And you don't necessarily have to have physical discipline or physical punishment for that to happen. I grew up in a household where I don't have any kids, so I don't have nobody to whoop. And if I did have children, I wouldn't whoop them. And one of the reasons why I wouldn't whoop the children, because I know from my own experience, whoopings didn't work. Really, it didn't work. I heard some of your children. It made some of your children not like their parents. It didn't make me not like my parents, but what it did, it made me be a lot more craftier in what I'm doing.
Exactly.
You know, but my mom became disabled in 1992. And this shaped my view on beatings, and it actually changed it. I would say it changed my view on beatings. So after she became disabled, she couldn't necessarily whoop us like she wanted to, like she used to. But even before that, the last whooping I got, I remember the last whooping I got, it didn't hurt. I was laughing. And so, but after my mom had those car accidents, she became disabled. She had to find different ways to punish us. And those ways were way more effective in correcting my actions than the beatings that we used to get when we were younger. And that made me reevaluate how I looked at beatings, because I always used to believe that children need to be beat. I used to believe that until just paying attention to my own experience, but also listening to adults. Older people used to champion beatings and say, I am the way I am because my parents beat me. I don't do such and such and such things because my parents beat me. And then I used to think, well, my auntie and my uncles and stuff, they got beat down and they still do their stuff. They done been to prison and all this. They selling drugs, all this stuff here. I know too many older people who have been beat by their parents and they're not better people because of it. So you can't definitively say that beating your child will correct their actions and make them a better person. And so all that came into how I view punishment and discipline now. But like you said, consistent discipline on your child does not mean you have to hit them. You just need to be consistent and firm with your discipline. And don't be lacking up on it. If you say no, it's no. It ain't a maybe no. It ain't none of that stuff. Like, I know plenty of 2-year-olds who run over their parents. And I'd be like, as big as you are, you can't tell this little thing right here no. And they can't because they failed to discipline. So if you have an undisciplined 2-year-old that you don't plan to get better at, wait till they get 12 or 22. You know, so it's discipline. Is discipline and punishment needed? Yes. But are beatings needed? No. No.
And just to go off what you just said, that's one of the negative consequences, how you say you believe they needed to happen. So does the majority of people in our community.
Right.
Because when I wasn't teaching these middle schoolers, I was teaching high schools, and we had the same conversation, and all of them swore that everybody needed to get beat or that would produce a bad child. And I said the same things you did, that nah, that's not true. Some people were in prison. They just never learned, or they got craftier. I was like, even think about you. After your beating, didn't you continue that behavior?
Right. Because I did. I personally did. So yeah.
And for me, I'm sorry, I despised my parent. I was just like my student that you heard where she said that it was distance created. Same with me, because I don't want to be hit. Like, I have violent thoughts in my head. And I just didn't like it. And I didn't want to do that to my own kids, to create that division and schism within our relationship. I wanted us to get closer. And as you see, I'm able to talk to my students. I'm able to talk to my own personal kids and have a good relationship with them and do things with them and appreciate them in ways that other parents can't, because it's in the back of your mind. If you're getting hit, I'm sorry, that don't go away.
Yeah. Well, so For me personally, the reason why I didn't have ill feelings or ill thoughts toward my parents when I got beaten is because I was 100% guilty of what I did. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. Like,
Okay, I'm with you on that.
I'm not even gonna lie. I earned my, like, the two whippings I remember. Like, one time I'm in the kitchen just messing around with the fire extinguisher. What I'm not, and I sprayed the whole kitchen. When I got through, the whole kitchen was white. And then the other one is I was stealing my cousin's money, buying everybody snow cones at summer camp. Like, I'm a rapper, right? So my mom punished me in that way. Now, could she have thought of something different to do? Yes, but at the time, that's what she thought was the best at the time. And like I said, I'm not mad at her for what she did, because I understand. Like, it's even as a child at that time, I understood exactly what I did, and I understood why she reacted the way she reacted. And so, but what it did do is, the biggest thing was I stopped doing stuff like that because I didn't want my mom to have to go to that route. I didn't want my mom to have to think that I'm a bad kid, or I'm just going to be putting her in bad positions. And
Right.
so to keep my mom out of bad positions, I need to correct my behavior. So that was the biggest thing. And that is, it wasn't the beating, it was her overall feelings and the overall aura of it, I created this situation, and I didn't need to create this situation, especially with the taking my cousin's money. All I had to do was ask.
Man, that's funny.
Yeah, that was being crazy. Hey man, like, I did some wild stuff. So now what was interesting, and you kind of hit it on it as well, is one of your students talked about, if you don't beat the kids, you can make them soft. First he said soft, and then he started to shift from soft into spoiled, and it's like he was trying to put them together.
Yep.
And it's like, it made me think about a lot, because it's real rural around here. So it's a lot of older countrymen that I grew up around, and their ideas was, if you got to toughen your child up. So you do got to put your hands on them to toughen them up. And that's like, well, no, you don't have to put your hands on them to toughen them up. You just got to make sure that you are giving them real life lessons and not hiding the world from them, and not making them think that they're special. But also, you perceiving them as soft and them actually being spoiled are two different things.
Different things, yeah.
But perceiving your child as soft, that goes into, one of our last shows talking about the perception of manhood. So just being able to look at that. But now let's get into some digging and some research, because we're talking about how we discipline our children, African Americans in particular, how we discipline our children. And one of the questions I had was, how did African people discipline their children before Europeans showed up? Because
did you find anything? Because I couldn't see the actual what they did. I just saw them say during pre-colonial Africa, spanking wasn't a part of it.
Yeah, I didn't find any definitive information, anything tangible. I didn't find that could support the notion that Africans beat their children before the Europeans, or that could tangibly support it after. Like you, I came across a lot of information that suggested that it wasn't a part of African culture until the missionaries and the Europeans showed up. And now I do know I do know about the missionaries, and I do know in European culture, especially within the religious cultures of Europeans, especially the spread of Christianity, they use corporal punishment as a lot of correction. And when the missionaries came over to Africa, they brought those same customs. And some of the information I found talked about how the schools, because a lot of schools were set up by the missionaries, and so the corporal punishment of the children really began in the schools, then trickled to the homes. So that's a lot of information I found. So this is something from the Griot, and it's from Dr. Stacy Patton. It said African Americans adopted the practice of beating children from white slave masters. Europeans brutalized their own children for thousands of years prior to crossing the Atlantic to the New World and colonizing Africa. Historians and anthropologists have found no evidence of ritualistic forms of physical discipline of children existing in pre-colonial West African societies prior to the Atlantic slave trade. West African societies held children in a much higher regard than slave societies in the Atlantic world, which placed emphasis on Black bodies as property, not as human beings. So that is one thing that I did find. I did find this interesting video. So let me share my screen and play this video real quick.
Whooping our children has always been assumed to be a part of Black culture. We do it because we love them, so we can ensure they learn to act right. But what if whoopings actually teach our children something completely different? Many of us remember our parents giving us something to cry about. Whooping helps children behave. It's a part of Black culture, right? But what if what we think we know about whooping is actually a lie? Whooping doesn't actually start with us. It was white Europeans who punished their children with severe beatings and lashings. The more severe, the better. So how did we discipline children in our culture? Before enslavement, our children were never beaten. According to the American Psychological Association, historians have found no evidence that physical discipline of children existed in pre-colonial West African societies prior to the Atlantic slave trade. Children in many West African cultures were considered to be connected with the afterlife, and whooping children was thought to scare off the soul. So why did we start whooping our children? For centuries, Black children were in danger. One wrong step and a white person could attack, enslave, or kill them at will. Whooping children into obedience was a form of protection. We still carry much of that generational trauma today. The act of whooping our children is rooted in white supremacy. It's not a part of the way Black people historically cared for our children. Our culture was built on love, not violence. And as we continue to free ourselves from white supremacy, we might also want to leave whooping behind.
So, yeah.
I was going to say that I think that coming from West Africa and the different spiritual systems there, like she said, we were more connected to the afterlife, and that whooping would scare the soul out of the child. I think we lose that when we accept Islam and Christianity. I think that we need to start thinking more like that as far as what is this doing to our spirit when we're hitting this innocent, vulnerable, defenseless child. Like that doesn't seem Christian or Islamic to me when both of their people preach peace and humility. I think too many times these Western forms of Islam and Christianity, they start to uplift pain and sacrifice too much, and that goes with the beatings and the spankings. And I think we need to get back. And I think in those cultures, the child is more integrated into the society. There's no like separation between something spiritual and growing food. And here in the West, we're so tired from working all these hours. It seems like spanking is like a quick form of discipline, so we can get back to what we're doing. We want to get a break, and rest. And here's this child. It's not like older cultures where things are more relaxed. Here everything's uptight. Parents are overworked, and they're like, yo, I just want this child to calm down so I can get some peace.
Right.
What do you think of that?
So, rites of passage. Rites of passage in Africa. I know those are tradition. I can't say this is for all of the cultures of Africa, but I do know various cultures that I've studied in West Africa, particularly, but all throughout Africa, various cultures that I've studied, they had rites of passage programs even before the colonizers showed up. Putting a child through this rites of passage will and it will reinforce the discipline and introduce more discipline and more structure in the child's life on top of what has already been introduced before they were entered into these rites of passage programs. But you know, I agree. Go ahead.
I was gonna say we got a rites of passage, but it's whoopings and beatings, and that needs to change.
Right.
Because I agree with you. We need a different types of rites of passage. Because it's right now, it's you get beat, you turn 21, you drink, you somewhere between 16 and 21, you have sex, but no rites of passage where we're teaching different principles that help us as we go through these different transitions in life.
Right, because like one of the things you talked about, beatings being a quick fix, but also a quick fix is no discipline at all.
That's a good one. Great point. I agree. Yes.
And so that's the whole purpose of rites of passage, is to be able to thwart all of that. That doesn't exist. So there are two types of parents, from my observation. Two types of parents: parents who discipline their children and parents who don't discipline their children. And so there's a way to some parents may think they're disciplining their children, but they're not disciplining their children. You're beating your child. You're not disciplining, right? So take the like yourself, parent like yourself who have children, and your children are disciplined. They're good children. They're not a problem. You can take them in public and don't have to worry about nothing. You don't have to worry about them stealing. You don't have to worry about doing no crazy things. Like when we went out, we knew not to embarrass my mother and my father's name. My dad never beat us. I can't. If he did, I don't remember. I don't remember my dad ever putting his hands on us like that. But creating that atmosphere, creating a culture of accountability and all those things. So you don't beat your child. You don't yell at your child. You don't curse your child out. All the stuff that I saw growing up that constituted as discipline. All these things don't happen, but these children are disciplined. They are structured. They're well mannered. They're accountable. They get things done. If you ask them to do something, they're polite. They have all these things. They're good students. They're good people. And so that is evidence. I see mounds and mounds, man. My shout out to my friend, my homie Sam, the one I told you that when we talked about we hit our friends one day. I hit him in his eye. But shout out to him, right? He and his wife, their two children are great children. They don't beat their children.
See,
you don't have to beat that. You don't have to beat your children. So so it gets into, in your opinion, and of course it's already been said, but we can elaborate. Why do Black people beat our children?
Tradition. That's what it was. It was tradition. We're going over. You asked me earlier, how did the conversation start with the kids? We're reading a book where it's called The Girl Who Drank the Moon, and their tradition is to give their child up to a witch that's supposed to kill the child. And nobody knows why they do it, but they do it out of tradition. And I think that's why, since it's our tradition, like you said, everybody in the community said, well, if you don't beat them, they're going to turn out to be bad kids, because they associate the beatings with discipline. But those are two different things.
Right.
So I think that's why, out of tradition and a felt social pressure to do it, because a lot of us are Christians, and like you named it, spare the rod, spoil the child. That's a part of our also religious tradition. So I think that's why.
Introduced into Africa by the missionaries and introduced to us during the slave trade. So the young lady in the video, she briefly mentioned it, but especially the mothers doing slavery, Black mothers doing slavery, if they had an outspoken Black child with a free spirit, a spirit of freedom, they would beat their children and keep their children in a docile position to keep the master from beating their children, to keep the master from killing their children, to keep the master from selling their children. So I have to correct you, and the best way I can correct you is to beat the hell out of you, and master needs to see me beating the hell out of you, so he won't think twice about doing anything, taking you, because mainly they fear their children being killed or taken away, right?
Yeah.
So I got to beat the hell out of you so you can act right. Because you know how you see in the movies, like, why you won't just act right? Why you won't act right? And acting right is making sure that you are not a hindrance to us and making us look bad in the eyes of white people.
Yep. Doesn't it Dr. Joyce DeGruy talk about this too in post-traumatic slave syndrome?
Yeah, she gets into the vacant esteem and the ever-present danger, and the racist socialization, but also the pass down of the epigenetics as well. When she really gets into it, when she's talking about how physical trauma is passed down from generation to generation. So a lot of that physical trauma is from the white man to the black person, but it's also from the parents to the child, that epigenetic memory.
Because that whooping is definitely getting passed down. It's definitely in our genes by now, epigenetics by now.
Right. So I mentioned to you before we hit record, but what was interesting though is why both of us do believe that discipline is still important.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I don't know what I did with this video, because I planned on showing it. I don't know what I did with it, but came across this real good video of these two black parents talking about they believe that at one point they believe children shouldn't have a voice in the house. So they came across a lot of other information via the internet that suggested, I'm just saying, they came across a lot of information from white people, right? And that suggested that, hey, you should give your children the autonomy that you have to voice themselves and to talk and to have opinions and all these different things. Give your child the autonomy that you have. And they said, well, let's give it a try. So they gave it a try, and for maybe a week or so, they thought it was good.
I think Jordan Peterson kind of says something like that.
They thought it was good until it blew up in their face.
Mm-hmm.
And what they didn't realize, because when they said that's what they was going to do, my first thought was children don't understand the responsibility that comes with it. What Spider-Man says, with great power comes great responsibility. What they say, heavy is the head that wears the crown. There, you are a leader because you earned it, right? And so they gave their children all this freedom, and it blew up in their face, and they had to shut it down and take it all away and rule. And but they're children. You have to direct. You don't have to be a dictator, but you have to direct. And part of directing is establishing hierarchy and respect and discipline and structure. And if you can't do that, you're really going to allow children to make their own autonomous decisions just all throughout all these areas of their life. Are you serious? The same children who choose not to wipe their butt good? Come on.
I totally agree. Like I said, remember in the audio, I'm like, who has the more developed brain? I mean,
that was brilliant. That was great.
Developed brain, therefore, they should make more of the decisions.
No, but that was great. I love how you went down that road with them of who had the most developed brain, because the parent understands why they're beating the child, or the parent should understand why they're beating the child. But I like you said, because I love how you said a couple shows ago, we're blinded by tradition.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think a number of parents really understand why they're beating their children.
Yeah, I don't think so either. It's just tradition. That's what you do, so you better do it.
And I'm angry.
And I'm angry.
So going back to what Dr. Joy DeGruy was talking about, the ever-present danger. So cortisol levels being high.
Yeah,
I'm overstressed, so my cortisol levels are high. So I'm 0 to 60, quick to anger. So if I'm a parent who's quick to anger, quick to 0 to 60, I'm cussing my kids out all the time. By the time my child is 3, they think their name is motherfucker and bitch, right? And I'm beating the snot out of my kids. I've seen parents drag their kids.
Yeah.
you know, but they don't understand why they're beating their child like this. All they know is you made me mad, and we're supposed to beat because it's tradition, right?
Yeah. And I think too, we don't think about how we have so less professionals in our families because we come from a history of slavery and Jim Crow. What I mean is we don't have a lot of professors and teachers who have read studies who are seeing the effects of
Right.
what a lot of this stuff does to our family. So what we're
Right.
doing is important, but since that's our tradition, we don't come from a tradition of challenging tradition and being used to listening to that and seeing, you know, what we should change and what we shouldn't, holding family meetings. Hey, this is what I'm seeing. This is what's going on. Maybe we should think about, we don't have a history of that yet. We're building that now. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Right.
I think that's why tradition can help and harm us the most. It's our greatest asset and our worst enemy because we don't have a history of doing these things, reading studies. Like all of my parents were coal miners and factory workers. They're not teachers and professors. Like we're starting to get them now. Like I got aunts and uncles, but we don't have a history of our people doing this.
No,
we're locked out of a lot of stuff.
No, that's real. That's a great point. That's a great point. My mom was the first one on her side of my family that we know of to graduate college.
See?
Right. And so that's such a great point because that's part of my frustration with Black people. And it's not necessarily the Black people, it's just my frustration because we have all of this information, all these studies and all this information, but these people don't have, well, they don't know this information exists. They don't have access to it. Mm-hmm. And so they can't alter their thoughts, and they don't have competing thoughts because they don't know this information exists. And just me saying it doesn't matter. Right. You know, so let me ask you this from a man who wants to be a father and want to make sure that I discipline my children right, but I love my children right and rear them right. When your children piss you off to the highest point of pissivity, how do you deal with your anger and not put your hands on your children?
Man, because I just think about how they're me. They're literally holding my DNA. And I think about when I had hands put on me, and I would never want that fear and anger put in them, being transmitted from me to them. Like that's what I think about. And I just try to calm down, take my little breaths and realize that I'm talking to myself. Like that they are me. Like, do you want this evil put in them? Do you want them doing this to the next generation, Rodney? Like, Don't you want this to be a learning moment so we can grow as a culture? Because whatever I decide to do, that's probably what they're going to continue to do. So the more I'm able to be calm in these stressful situations, the better they're going to handle it. And then the better the next generation. And that's how we're going to start to get better. So that's, and the other reason I brought up the professional class is because I have now moments of rest. I get the summers off since I'm a teacher versus my father working all these hours and hardly gets a vacation where you can read and rest. So I want that for my kids. So I'm teaching them also conflict resolution. Hey, this is how we should solve problems because I want their, relationships to be better. So I've had time to think about this so I can act in appropriate ways so they mimic these positive things.
Gotcha. And I asked that because, I want to know. I want access to as much information as possible before I become a father. I'm not one of the ones who want to sit around and wait on it. I'm not waiting on till I become a husband. I'm not waiting on till I become a father. I'm trying to get this information now. But I also am aware of my upbringing and tradition and things that I'm working on breaking because I grew up in an environment where you popped the kids, you hit the kids, you did those things. You might not have beat them down, but you put your hands on your child to correct them. And I don't want to do that. And so that's why I'm asking. So looking for alternative ways to deal with the situation, to deal with the anger, and to make sure that I still discipline my child, but I don't create a menace to society, because you know,
Right.
any study that
Oh.
you look at, we don't even really have to get deep into the studies, but any study you look at will show that beating your child is a bad idea.
Correct. And to go back to what you were saying, so what we did was you would pop their hand if they were going to stick it in the socket. So we got the safety things to stick it in the socket, so there's no need to pop their hand. Or a hot iron. Okay, take your time, make sure there ain't no hot iron around. Make sure they're not in the kitchen when you're cooking. Like, take away all the stuff that's going to cause you to want to pop them. You can grab them and move them out the way. I don't have to hit them. Like, no, we don't touch the electrical socket or a hot stove. I don't have to hit them. And then another thing is sports. As my sons were growing, we could put them in sports. And I actually ran with them and teach them, hey, oh, okay, you don't want to do right? Well, we're going to go run. It was plenty of times I woke them up in the middle of the night and we go run. Or we're driving in the car. Oh, you don't want to learn, you don't want to talk. Man, I'll pull over, we'll go run. Because, hey, we're going to keep your mind and your body strong. I'm not going to put my hands on you, but you're going to learn to be disciplined.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to have to work your mind and your body. They read. Every day after school, they come home and they read. Now, I'm divorced, but my ex-wife made sure that continued. And I'm glad now because they're still on honor roll in high school and junior high because they had this habit of coming home and no TV, read, and then do homework. So I think all of that helped develop some discipline in the kids, and they saw that we cared about them. And so they were like you. They didn't. My sons and them would tell me, "Well, I just didn't want to disappoint you, Dad." I was like, "Thank you," because a lot of kids don't care. So I'm glad you care. You know, and I'm able to talk to them since I don't hit them. I'm able to talk to them, and they feel comfortable talking to me.
Yeah. Now, but no, as somebody who does HIV/AIDS prevention, that is excellent. That's music to my ears. I come across so many children who, in this realm of safe sex and just sexual responsibility and stuff, they're failing because they didn't have these conversations with their parents. But if I can't talk to my parent about other stuff, I know I can't talk to my parent about sex. You know, so having those open lines of communication is important. So, but I thought it was important for us to kind of take a historical dive in this, but also look at the actual effects of beatings, because we need to understand that from all the information that we've come across, Black people beat their children because this is what we were taught by the colonizers and or slave masters. It was the way you keep your slave in check. And whether it was in schools or at home. And if you look at information that's showing about corrective action or corporal punishment for African children, a lot of information I came across said it started in the schools and matriculated to the homes. As a matter of fact, when you and I were first emailing each other back and forth, in the email I told you that I found mixed information. So I did find some information that suggested that African people did beat their children before European contact, but most of the information, the overwhelming information, said, well, no, that's not true. But there are still people from the African continent who believe that because it is their tradition as well that African people have always beat their children. But once again, there's no definitive information either way to prove. But a lot of the information is pushing toward that African people, that beating their children is not an African or African American tradition. Originally, it was implanted in us by colonizers and or slave masters.
Yep. But the same information that I found.
Yeah. So just us having a greater understanding, but we don't have to beat our children and we don't need to beat our children. As I stated earlier, studies show that beating your children have negative effects on them. Negative physical, psychological, emotional effects on your children. So, there are a number of Black people, older Black people and Black people these days who brag about getting beat down by their parents. And that's, I don't know what that is, but that's well, I do know that's trauma.
It is, and that's one of the consequences. It makes you more accepting of violence, because I think that plays right into why we love so much violent video games, music, and movies. Like
Yeah.
all of America is violent. So all of this goes hand in hand to me, and it makes us want more violence. Like you said, now people are walking around saying, "Hey, yeah, you should beat your kids.
Yeah.
You better." That violent. That's what we're all about. And I don't think people are looking at it that way. They're not saying that they're in agreement with the violence. And you know what I found? I even tried to talk about the Hamas and Israel thing with my kids to see what they would say. And like they're unfazed, like any killing anywhere, they don't care. Killing in the hood, they're all accepting of all of it. So I think the spanking fits in perfectly with their worldviews on violence.
So because Grand Theft Auto came out over 20 years ago, first, I believe.
Something like that.
So a lot of these children, especially your children, they've been playing Grand Theft Auto their whole life. They've been playing Call of Duty their whole life. They've been playing games. We
Fortnite. My kids play Fortnite. They love Fortnite.
Man, we used to love Mortal Kombat.
Yep.
Them fatalities. I used to love it. You know, right. But it's like violence is everything. That's the one of the main pillars that America is founded upon, violence.
Yep.
So we are violent people. Black people, we don't like to admit it, but we are violent people. Now, we're not as violent as we could be because of our socializing and our conditioning, but we are violent. And that is because of our socialization and our conditioning that we are violent. And we're more violent than we need to be to ourselves because we're more violent to ourselves than any other group of people.
Yes.
Now, that's no different from any other groups, but we know the root of ours because a lot of ours comes into that vacant esteem, that self-hate that we have for ourselves. Now, I shared a video with you the other day, and there was a gentleman talking about white supremacist masculine orientation. And it was a very interesting video that I will we're gonna get heavy. This is gonna be our next video conversation, but we're gonna get heavy into this. But I thought, and you came up with this idea. It was great that it can tie into this because we're talking about being violent and how all of this violence happens to us. So basically, just a teaser, white supremacist masculine orientation, as the gentleman was describing, basically boils down to black people. Well, he was talking about men.
Exactly.
Yeah. He was basically black from all of the trauma and the socialization and the racist socialization that black people have received in America. It translated into black men only, as he was alluding to, black men only wanting to be like white people, and not wanting to be like white people and realizing that we don't have power. That leads into us being violent towards each other, but also us trying to dominate each other.
Yeah.
And so what are some of your thoughts on that? And of course, it's a teaser to the next, but what are some of your thoughts on that?
So I just thought he was spot on, as they would say, as far as us picking up some of these white male traits as far as domination. That fits perfectly with the spankings, because of course we got it from the white slave masters and Africans from the colonizers in the form of physical violence, and then it's transmitted to us, and then we do this to our children, to our family members. If we got a problem with another male, we're going to try to dominate them violently. We're going to try to handle conflict violently. So I thought he was on point with that, but it only had a slant towards the black male, and that's common in this society, where any negative stereotype that exists comes from the black male having that stereotype first. So we're seen as the super predators, as Clinton would say, these monsters, these demons, and no one else is, just the black male. And even some of the studies that he referenced, I started reading them. The 19, what was it? The 19, what was it? Shoot, I forgot. Well, but one of the studies, I started reading it, and it had a slant towards black males too. But you can't talk about socialization of a people and it only be the socialization of one gender. That doesn't make any sense.
No, none of our scholars has any information slanted like that.
No.
Go back and look at all my Monday videos that we're reading in these books. They're talking about how both men and women, black men and black women, were affected. If you're gonna sit here and say that black men want to be like white men, well, don't black women want to be like white women? Like, isn't that the reason why they walk around with blonde wigs and weave in their head?
Facts.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying we got on our corporate suits to be like them, and they got on their blonde wigs and weaves to be like the white women. Right. But and what was interesting though, like I said, looking up white supremacists, white supremacy masculine orientation, looking that up, how white supremacy ruined mainstream politics. Former white supremacists explain why young white men, you can't understand white supremacists without this. Why white supremacists are not always white, the dis-ease of black men and white supremacists. Now, this is some of the titles for white supremacists masculine orientation. White supremacists feminine orientation is how do women become white supremacists? How women fall into America's white power movement? Women in white supremacist movements. Do white supremacist women adopt the movement? So white supremacists masculine orientation is talking about how black men want to be like white women. I mean, white men.
Right.
But white supremacist feminine orientation is talking about how white women want to be white supremacists. And so, like I said, we're going to dive deep into this video the next time Brother Rodney and I get together. But it just sounds like a lot of truth mixed with a lot of white supremacist rhetoric, mixed with a lot of feminine rhetoric, mixed with a lot of bull that's been spit out that sounds good. So,
and again, tradition blinds us. It's tradition to only look at the black male as negative and say nothing negative associated to the black female.
Right.
So
right.
A lot of his scholarship we see is blinded by that tradition.
Right. And we know colleges are teaching people what to think and not how to think.
Facts.
Yeah. So we're gonna leave y'all with that little cliffhanger for the next video. And y'all make sure y'all keep tuning in. We appreciate the support. Y'all make sure y'all go subscribe to the Black Family Institute. The link is in the description if you haven't subscribed already. You tripping, you behind. Brother Rodney is dropping a whole lot of good information. All right. So you see my information scrolling.
Oh, let me say something too. Hey, Joseph also is doing great work, and he's been watching the videos that I'm doing with my family. I have videos where during the holidays, me and the family turned off the electronics, except for some of our videos I did with Professor Tony Jones. And then we had group discussions about the historical stuff that we went over. So you'll be able to see me interacting with my family in real time.
Yeah, so go check them out. Go check them out. And, we'll catch y'all next time. We appreciate the support. Love y'all.